Hey guys, Bailey here, and I hope this finds you doing well. I want to do a shout out to Alyssa McCabe Artwork for her beautiful illustrations, her watercolors. If you're feeling confused about Chapter 3, then you definitely want to stick around and listen to Chapter 4 because it really does clarify and clear up a lot of questions you might be having. And also, it introduces a lot of new characters, which is always fun to meet new people. So, without further ado, here's Chapter 4. When Val knew everyone had gone out for the evening to celebrate the final contract meeting, she decided she'd head back to the Cipriano mansion, certain that Jaden would have left her an updated contract to sign. In a forest green t-shirt, brown knit button boots, and a tri-colored yellow, green, and red knee-length skirt, she stomped across the Cipriano lawn. Dewdrops sparkled in the blades of the freshly mowed grass, under the light of the full moon, resembling a sheet of emerald glitter. Belle was met at the bottom landing by a Cipriano guard, who stepped in her way rather than greeting her. "Hey," Belle said meekly. "Jaden said he left a contract out for me," she added, nervously. "Go ahead," the guard replied, curtly. She made her way through the heavy double doors to the official documents envelope, sitting on the counter with her name on it. She climbed up onto a leather stool and got herself comfortable for the read-through. She opened the envelope carefully, not to crease the pages, and found her amended contract. She read the contract several times over, initialing where indicated, and then finally signing her name in print and then script. She stared at the pages, wondering if she made the right choice, when she heard an unfamiliar voice cut through the silence from the darkness. "If it isn't Belle Giordano," the voice called out in a roar, echoing through the mansion. She jumped up from her stool, startled, and when he stepped into the light, she realized it was Mr. Cipriano, juggling armfuls of his belongings. He looked weathered, like he spent his whole life partying or crying, likely the former. "Didn't mean to startle you," he added, smoothly. "Mr. Cipriano, you scared me half to death. How are you? How is everything?" Belle asked, trying to compose herself, taking note of a few certain items clenched in his bear hug. "Well, Miss Giordano, it's a little crazy to me that a man's name has to be on a list to get into his own house," Mr. Cipriano said, seemingly bitter to stumble upon Belle on his way out. "Sounds like a personal problem," Belle said, a shiver running down her spine. She froze in fear, peering about like a startled owl, when Jaden stepped out from a dark hallway and into the kitchen. "Jay," she said in a whisper, surprised to see him. "What are you still doing here?" Jaden asked his father angrily, stepping in between he and Belle. "I was just talking to Belle, son, about how great it feels to be home," Mr. Cipriano said. A wide, shiny grin spread across his face. "This isn't your house, it's ours. Take what's yours and don't touch anything that isn't," Jaden said, with his fist balled up at his sides. Belle pulled at his arm, hoping to create some kind of distance between he and his father. "Son, you only get one father. Don't let your mother poison you against me. You're a killer and a criminal, and you're no father of mine," Jaden said, fiercely. "You've got your stuff, now get out, or I'll have security throw you off the property." Mr. Cipriano beamed at his son, seemingly proud. "I'll be in town for a few more days. I'd like to see you and your brother. There's some things I'd like to tell you both," Mr. Cipriano added, before disappearing through the double front doors. After Jaden returned the few feet from walking Belle home, he was headed up the stairs to try to find some rest, when he saw Gloria's silhouette sitting in the living room. "Hey, Ma, what are you doing up?" Jaden asked. "Just because you boys are grown doesn't mean I don't worry about yous," Gloria said, reaching for the lamp chain on the table beside her. "Hey, can I ask you something, Ma?" Jaden asked, Gloria nodding back at him. "How do we end up here? In Ackley Torrance?" Jaden asked, wondering why they were the only two-lot mansion in the entire town. Although Naomi's family had a fairly decent-sized house, another no-show father, the Cipriano's mansion put most of the state to shame. Gloria twisted her face, not really sure of the answer he was searching for. Best I remember it, your father found this place. Well, 2 others he tore down, to build this in its place, she added, correcting herself. When we met Mr. Giordano and the kids, we agreed this was the kind of family we wanted all boys to grow up around. I don't get it. It's not like he ever stuck around to be part of that, or raising us at all, Jaden said, wondering if there was more to know, and if Gloria didn't know it, who would? That's why I divorced him and took back my maiden name, not before he snaked his way into my family money first, Gloria recalled remorsefully. You boys are the best thing that's ever happened to me. And Avery and Belle have been the second best, Gloria said, proudly. Unbelievable, Jaden said, heading toward the grand staircase of the Cipriano mansion. Excuse you, Jaden Vittorio Cipriano, Gloria said, a blast of icy air headed up Jaden's spine. He didn't appreciate being spoken to like that, but he had a healthy fear of his mother all the same. I'm your mother. Did you think I didn't know that you loved her? Did you? Jaden asked curiously. Then you've done nothing except make it more difficult for me. They're not your damn kids. Turned to head toward the stairs and shook his head, thankful he would be moving in a couple months. I did know, she called after him, a slither of empathy in her voice. I've always known since you were a boy, and I did try to help. I gift-wrapped you 2 Principessas, 2 of them, and you have the goots to turn your nose up to them? Gloria pointed out angrily. I tried to help you move on, Gloria admitted. Jaden paused, looking his mother straight in the eyes. I can't, Jaden said, disinterested in the conversation of wife candidates his mom had lined up for him. Also, what are goots? Jaden asked, wondering if he heard her correctly. You know, goots. Just get out of here, you, Gloria insisted, showing him off. Jaden laughed to himself, thinking maybe he might ask Val if Gloria ever mentioned goots to her before. Early the next morning, Belle climbed the long stone stairway of the Ackley Public Library. She sat at her favorite table in the back corner, disguised by some bookshelves, and laid out Jericha, a legacy, casually waiting for a particular someone to cross her path. It was not long before a pimply boy shuffled past her with a squeaky, cream-colored cart overflowing with books. Hey, Reese, how are you? Belle asked kindly. Reese had always been nice to Belle and headed the library's volunteer program. Reese's father was acting president of the Ackley Public Library and an esteemed member of the Ackley Council. Between Reese's father's 2 titles, there was not many resources Reese wasn't able to gain access to. Hey, Belle, Reese said, his red hair forked off into different directions. I thought I gave you off today, Reese asked, pushing his glasses up on his nose. You did. I came to see you, actually, Belle said apprehensively. Any luck on that book we discussed? Are you sure you had the right title? Reese asked, quietly. According to all standard and restricted database searches, no such book exists, Reese said, curious in her interest. I even checked the dark web, he added, quietly. I thought I did, Belle said, doubting herself. I really appreciate you checking, Reese. Thank you, she said warmly. He watched her walk back to her table, discouraged. Belle had always been good to Reese, and the Ciprianos covered her. To be in good standing with her was his best chance at a friendship or a business relationship with the family. "If you want me to continue a discreet search for you, I will," Reese offered, grateful for her friendship. "Really?" Val asked excitedly. "You're a good friend for this, Reese. Thank you. I owe you big time." "Hey, how's Jericho looking?" Reese asked, motioning to the closed book on her table. "Pretentious, actually," Val said, collecting her books and belongings from her table. "And on that note," she said, handing him the book. "An interesting read, but I'm going to leave this with you now," she said, smiling. Reese snorted in laughter, unable to contain himself from the humor of a subpar book joke. "I'm going to check this out next," he said jokingly, contorting with laughter. Val smiled back, waved, and headed out of the employee entrance to the library to continue her investigations into what Avery has been up to every evening. She had impressed herself, repeatedly finding a way to be seen going into the library, but never coming out. A thick morning mist crept across the blacktop in waves, cloaking the Ackley town square from sight. Avery and Jaden settled into their usual booth at Poached, their favorite breakfast eatery. 4 Cipriano guards trailed behind the boys, occupying the 2 tables on both sides of them. Coincidentally, the window view of Poached is the Ackley Public Library and the town square clock tower. A brother looking after his favorite bookworm, perhaps. Avery and Jaden sat silently, doctoring their coffees opposite the other, steam bellowing from their ceramic mugs. A top-heavy blonde with an ulterior motive in the swing of her hips approached the boys' table, her interest very much aimed to Jaden. "Getting your usual guys?" the waitress asked, leaning a bit far into Jaden's personal space. Her blonde hair grazed his face, the lavender notes of her shampoo rumpling his features in disgust. Jaden snapped back in his chair. "You know we always do," he said, tossing the menu in her direction. "Next time, just put in the order. I only want to see you when you drop off my breakfast, at a respectable distance," Jaden added angrily. The waitress took off disappointedly through the kitchen doors. "That was harsh," Avery said, surprised by Jaden's agitated state. "I mean, the guys can't hold off the person taking my order. She just takes advantage 'cause she's classless," Jaden said, bitterly. "Yeah, she's just another gold digger, but she's in a long line for Cipriano air," Avery reminded him, dutifully. "Not Belle," Jaden said, softly. "Yeah, well, Belle's her own enigma that I haven't quite figured out yet," Avery replied. An awkward silence fell over their table when the waitress returned with their breakfasts. Heaping piles of scrambled eggs with melted cheddar, pork steak, crispy bacon, sausage, home fries, and toast placed before them. "Excuse me, miss. I just wanted to apologize for my lack of manners earlier. Forgive me," Jaden said, looking to Avery for his approval. "I'm sorry, I just assumed," the waitress said, surprised by his rejection. "Assumed what? That I love the attention, or that you would capitalize on my reputation?" Jaden asked, disgusted. "Here I am in the flesh to tell you whatever you've heard. It's an untrue depiction of who I am." "I'm sorry," the waitress replied guiltily, running off to the kitchen. "Geez, Jay," Avery said, borrowing a page out of Belle's vocabulary. "How can we talk business if she's buzzing around, shoving her chest in my face?" Jaden countered, defending his stance. "You should be used to the attention and handle it with a little more grace," Avery said, pointing at him. "Listen, forget the waitress. Let's talk about Belle," Avery said, agitated, gripping at his steaming mug. "Let's talk about how I've been working with Daniel on something for months, and Belle makes mention of it and gets all security banished because she doesn't feel like looking at them." "The meeting," Jaden whispered, remembering how quickly it went so wrong. You have no right to call that sideshow a meeting, Avery said insultingly. He took a moment to try and compose his tone to a more diplomatic one. Listen, if we favor Belle, it will piss off everyone else. Also, we can't have Belle unintentionally manipulating you and running the show. It makes us both look weak, he added, snapping a piece of bacon in half with his teeth. It's for the better of Battaglia to keep her happy. She's going to make us all of our money, Jaden said, hoping to appeal to the strategist within Avery. Jay, how many times have we discussed this? Avery asked, enraged. She is not a business platform. She's a person. Just let me explain, Jaden pleaded. Jay, don't bother. I've seen the way you've been looking at her lately, like she's carrying your heart around in her stack of books, Avery said bluntly. Ave, Jaden managed, looking up from the table. I love her, Jaden professed, grateful to admit the words aloud. What do you want me to say? Avery asked, clearly hurt. After all the nights we've spent tearing up torrents, scouting out girls at the bar? Avery searched his eyes confused when it dawned on him. All his stomach aches, Jaden scooting out from every event or gathering that Belle wasn't present at. Even as of late, the boys had made him the butt of their jokes with his stomach aches that come back every day. I tried to love anyone but her. I just can't, Jaden admitted humbly. The diners looked on in shock, not one fork lifted from the table. Luckily, Poached has a no-filming policy, a key reason it's the preferred place to hold their business meetings. I've loved her since always, Jaden admitted. I've loved her since always, Avery said, correcting him. When our father died, I listened to her wailing at night, and I helped her walk through the grief, he said, narrowing his eyes darkly at Jaden. Ave, we loved you both, Jaden said, only to be immediately cut off by Avery. I raised her, and I stretched myself for all the things a Cipriano check cannot cover, Avery said, pausing a moment to cool his tongue. Look, I know it's convenient. She's the beautiful girl next door, the paramount model of Battaglia. Don't be ridiculous. There's nothing convenient about you or your sister, Jaden said, rubbing at his wild hair anxiously. You know, you two really are exactly alike. Talking to the two of you is like being strung up from a noose knotted at his sentences, Jaden said bitterly. We're a package deal, Belle and I. You know this, Avery announced proudly. If I just had your blessing, I could, Jaden said, hope coating his heart. If you just had my blessing, you would already have it, Avery said, coldly. Listen, you're my best friend, like a brother to me. I'm not saying this can never be, but for now, being with you is not what's best for her, Avery said, looking Jaden dead in his watery eyes. Avery tossed down some money, gave his best friend's shoulder a commiserating squeeze, and walked away from their first ever uneaten breakfast, disappearing into the fog. Hey guys, Bailey here. So that was chapter 4. Hopefully you find yourself more familiar with the characters and setting and landscapes of Essere. Chapters 5 and 6 are sure to hold some juicy details as well, so you'll definitely want to stay tuned and hear what's going on with everybody. And I can honestly promise that you will find out what Avery's up to. By chapter 6, by the end of chapter 6, you'll have a pretty decent grasp of what's going on, or at least some suspicions of, exactly what it could be. I feel like we all might have an Avery, in our lives. Not necessarily named Avery, of course, but somebody who's just always up to something, and you're just like, what are you doing? How do you dabble in so many things at once, successfully? So if you're an Avery fan, or a Belle and Jaden fan, you really don't want to miss chapters 5 and 6. Please like, subscribe, and share if you haven't. And thank you guys so much for your support. I really do appreciate it. Have the best night. Good night and God bless.